What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Lights Out Fantasy Football Podcast, Process Over Results, Week 17. It is myself. I have my usual co-host, Joe Holka, with me. Joe was having some, he got a new webcam. He wanted to look pretty for our final podcast of the year, and it seems to not work. And if anybody has any solutions for us, Joe, it was like, what was it? You were talking, and like the video wasn't actually showing up like as you were talking for 8 seconds?
Yeah, it wasn't good. Better late than never, I thought, but I guess it's going to have to wait until next year.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to work on that this offseason. We'll get everything in check. One thing we don't have to worry about is Jake Ciely. Jake's got his professional little setup over there, his headset on. Jake, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Yeah, I was just trying to retweet to make sure I got this out for the show for everybody to listen.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's the last show, so it's kind of sad in that way, but at the same time, it's kind of exciting to have some free time again to our lives. Jake, I've seen you all week telling people to basically why are you playing week 17? And do you guys have any logical explanation for people playing week 17 fantasy football, like a season long league right now? I just don't understand who would actually keep their league doing that. Is there any explanation?
They don't know any better. And honestly, the weird thing is to come to find out the default setup on ESPN is 2-week playoffs, two-week playoffs, and it goes into weeks. So playoffs are 14, 15, 16, 17, 2-week matchups. So that's the default setup, which seems really I don't mind if you have that as an option, but for that to be the default setup seems kind of weird. And so there's a lot of people that I've got just said I didn't realize it when I joined the league. I didn't know that was an option. It's just I think people just don't know any better.
That's crazy. Joe, do you have any explanation? I know the first time I ever played in a fantasy league, we had it at week 17, and we quickly learned that year it was you don't do this. So that ever since then we changed it.
Yeah, it's basically your entire season comes down to a preseason game or a preseason slate of games, which is for season long, obviously not what you want for DFS. These are the best kind of weeks. It all revolves around who's going to accumulate the best and most information. It doesn't really matter who the best players are. It's who's going to see the volume, who's going to actually get a chance to help your team. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity in weeks like this, along with preseason weeks as well. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I said. I think just important as, knowing who to play this week, I think it's more important to know who not to play. And obviously we're going to talk about all that during the show today. And guys, I think we might try and do something to talk a little bit of cash guys too, just because there's a lot of people out there that I told them I wasn't going to be doing a Sunday show this week just because it's New Year's and nobody's going to want to get up to listen to a show of me talking for an hour, including myself. So we're going to cover a couple cash guys. Maybe we'll build a cash game lineup. We'll see how much time we kind of have towards the end of the show. But and again, last time, guys, this episode is sponsored by Roto Tracker. It is a tool for all you daily fantasy sports players to help you get a grip on game selection. I was keeping track of it myself on my spreadsheets before I even learned about them. And honestly, it's kind of funny because I didn't know about them until Joe actually pointed me in their direction. Joe uses them and they approached him about, sponsoring the show. And it kind of really worked out because it's an amazing tool. I went there and checked it out. It's one click and it imports your lineups that you've played on DraftKings or FanDuel, and it analyzes, basically tells you how you've done in cash games, how you've done in tournaments, basically where you're lacking, where you're doing well, and ways that you can improve. So honestly, it's a great tool. And if you guys go to rototracker.com/POR, our special membership, what it's going to do, it's going to give you a free subscription it'll upload, I think, 150 lineups for you to analyze those. And if you're a big time DFS player where you're playing, hundreds of lineups a week and stuff like that, you definitely want to upgrade to the premium. And if you go through our link, you're going to get an automatic 10% off. So it's a really neat tool. Like I said, I know Joe uses it a lot in his when analyzing how he's doing in his games. And speaking of that, Joe, as we always do every show, we talk about game selection. And unfortunately, being in Arizona, it's pretty tough for me to analyze game selection. But what's going on in week 17? And is there anything that you'd recommend to people to play that may have a larger?
Yeah, so with every game on Sunday this week, it's a great opportunity to kind of diversify by playing different slates again. I know I've talked about that before, but since there's going to be a good amount of players in the player pool with each of those slates, I just wanted to talk about one tournament for each of the 4 DraftKings slates available that I've got locked in right now for my own process. And on the main slate, it includes all 16 games. I'm looking at the $400 juke It's a 3-max tournament with a field of just 208 people, and 25.4% of the field is being paid out at roughly just a 10% rake. So even though the multiplier is just 1.5x, you still have some good upside because there's 10K up top, and that's just 13% of the total prize pool. So it's relatively flat. The early slate on DK, it's got 9 games, and the one I'm looking at is a $300 blitz. It's a 4-max tournament, and the field is just 166 people, but 27% of the field is being paid out. Again, 10% rake, and the multiplier is 1.6, but with 6K up top and another total prize pool that's relatively flat. The afternoon slate, I'm also going to probably play the blitz with a very similar structure as the early DK slate. But on the afternoon DK slate, and that includes the 7 games. So it includes a Sunday night game. I'm looking at the $100 hot route, and that's just a 2-max tournament with a field of just 77 people. So extremely small, but just 10% rake is hard to find at the $100 level. And the multiplier is 2x. So it's pretty similar to a lot of the FanDuel GPPs, as just 20% of the field's being paid out. But there is $1,500 up top, and it's definitely my favorite GPP on that slate because of the small field. And just to be safe, I also like to throw these lineups into large field GPPs on the main slate, just because you never know. Like, they're already pretty unique because you're fading certain games by default. But for example, I had a 1 p.m. only lineup on FanDuel a few weeks ago that finished in the top 50 of the Sunday Million. And I would have felt pretty dumb if I didn't have it anywhere else but the 1 p.m. only slate. So just something to think about.
Well, that's actually a really good point. Just different lineup construction based on, game selection itself. So that's a great point. Hopefully a lot of people have listened to the game selection piece, because it's an area that I think a lot of people overlook, myself included, when I played DFS back in Illinois. So that's definitely good information. Jake, now we're going to go to you for the lock of the week. But I have yet to hear any props from you guys about my Allen Robinson and Antonio Gates calls last week. I felt pretty.
Nice try. I had you on air and I mentioned it.
You did?
Yeah.
Look at that. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it, man. It's been a crazy.
Antonio Gates in one lineup after I was pretty upset. So thanks for that. At least I had him in one lineup and not 0 like I planned.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm happy that you had him in some, but yeah, this week is not a week to play him. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But Jake, every week you give us a lock. Who is it going to be this week? And I know Cameron Brate against the Saints, he got hurt in that game. How many snaps did he play?
I don't know, but he got a touchdown. That's all that matters.
He did get a touchdown, and honestly, that's enough to get into the top 12 tight ends seemingly every single week. So, so who are we looking at this week that everybody should be having in, maybe 90% of their lineups is like a lock for production?
Well, if we were talking cash, I think Steve Smith would be the obvious one, but I feel like you're going to have to fade him in tournaments because everybody knows the narrative. Everybody expects Steve Smith to see 15 targets this week and for his price. I'm surprised both sites, DraftKings and FanDuel, didn't jack up his price more just on that alone. So you have that going out there. There's a couple other names that I'm looking at that I feel better for cash. But if we're talking about tournament, like, of course, Michael Thomas, I love him as well. But for tournament, I'm going with Devontae Adams in most of my lineups because I think a lot of people are going with the Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson stack, which Jordy Nelson has been. Nobody's been better than him over the past 5 weeks. He's about to surpass Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown's not going to be playing this week. He's going to end up becoming the number 1 wide receiver for fantasy this year. But I think that's why you can go to Devontae Adams, who's somebody who is definitely going to see the opportunity for red zone targets, at least a couple of them. Really good chance to get a touchdown. He has a nice matchup, just as Jordy Nelson does. Everybody really does in this situation. We know that going against the Lions. And the fact that Randall Cobb is either limited or out again just leaves so much more for Nelson and Adams. And Rodgers will involve other people, but I'm going with Adams as in if I want to get my piece of Rodgers or if I just want to get my piece of this offense and differentiate myself, I'm taking Adams almost everywhere.
Yeah, no, I like the call there. Adams' drops have been unfortunate, but at the same time, Rodgers has got to keep going back to him because he doesn't have very many options. It's not like, as you mentioned, Randall Cobb, he hasn't been there. Jordy Nelson, I don't know if Darius Slay is going to play this week. Have we got any update on that? Because I know he returned to practice. Is he playing?
I don't think we got official word still yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything since he was questionable.
I would assume that he's going to try and gut it out and play. I don't know if he'll be 100%. And Jordy Nelson, honestly, there hasn't been a cornerback. Ever since he got healthy, there hasn't really been a corner in the league that's been able to keep up with him. There's only been 4 games this season where he has not scored a touchdown, which is quite ridiculous. All All right, Joe, let's kick it off with quarterbacks. Let's talk about some quarterbacks that you like. Maybe give us one of your favorite tournament options and one of your favorite cash options.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that about cash games earlier. I'm going to be scaling back quite a bit on head-to-heads this week. I'm probably going to be playing quite a bit more tournaments than usual. And on the tournament side, I just don't understand it. Like, people just don't want to play Drew Brees. Like, if he's anywhere below 10%, if he's in the 5% range again this week, it's definitely something I'm going to be firing at, similar to the Brees Cooks week. Like Brees is in a great spot, underperforms, then no one plays him the next week in a spot that's probably just as good. So I really don't understand it. I mean, the Falcons-Saints game has the highest over-under of the season at 56.5 points, and Brees tends to struggle on the road. But, I mean, in 8 road games with an over-under of 53 since 2013, he's averaged almost 300 yards and over 2 passing touchdowns. So that was a stat I saw from Chris Raybon this year that I thought was pretty amazing. I mean, it's right in the optimal kind of sweet spot for GPPs that I look for as far as like the point total. And I think if you can get him anywhere near 5% in tournaments, then he's going to be one of the best plays of the week with everyone playing Rodgers, playing Matt Ryan. So what do you think about Matt Ryan on the other side of that? Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably the best cash game play of the week, probably. But in tournaments, I'm going to go to Brees probably at a lower ownership. Yeah, I just saw Taylor Gabriel's announced out. I don't know if that does anything. Jake, what do you think? Does that do anything to Matt Ryan's status? Does it bump him down at all? Who's your favorite quarterback play this week?
No, I don't mind Matt Ryan at all, even with that situation. I think Mohamed Sanu has been decent at times enough, and Julio Jones. Obviously, I think that I'd want to stay away from him for the cash purposes, for the price, and there is that threat that because Julio Jones might not be 100%. I think we still expect a ton from Matt Ryan, but those added factors would keep me out of there. I don't have a problem with him for tournament purposes. I think if you're going to pay up this week, the names are obvious: Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees. You know I love Drew Brees. The only name that I'm looking at further down the list for tournament-wise, and that's just because there's not a lot here. Like, I feel like if you don't pay up for one of these top names, you're kind of – I think you're getting too cute, because basically you're saying that Brees, Ryan, Rodgers, all these quarterbacks are not going to have a big day. And to get down to where you really start to get some cost value out of it, like maybe Stafford on the other side, because the last time against the Packers, and the Packers' secondary is still weak, and that might be a nice contrarian play that a lot of people are looking at this game and just ignoring Stafford, go with a Stafford Tate or something like that. I could see that, but that's my point, is now you're going in the facts saying, well, I think all those other quarterbacks aren't going to hit, and at least one of them is probably going to get 30 points.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with you. Now, a couple of the guys I like down low, like obviously we like the bigger guys. I think Stafford's interesting. I do think it hurts that Theo Riddick is not going to play again. I think that's hurt him over the past couple of weeks, on top of his finger issue that he's been dealing with. But what about Carson Palmer and Blake Bortles? So Palmer, I like going into LA, obviously, as the year's gone on, they trended down. LaMarcus Joyner, it doesn't seem like he's going to play this week, and he's probably their best cornerback that would cover Larry Fitzgerald out of the slot. They've allowed 15 passing touchdowns the last 6 games. Over the last 5 games, they've allowed 4 running back receiving touchdowns. I think it's an interesting stack to go Palmer and David Johnson. Have you given that any thought, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I've played that stack quite a bit these last couple of weeks, just because I think they correlate better than people think. But this week in particular, I don't really see the need to go down off some of those main options, just because you don't really need to. Like, there's going to be enough savings with some value guys and some guys that are going to kind of see an increased role, that I don't know if we really have to do that. If I'm going to go down, it's probably not going to be past Russell Wilson at 6,800. And I still really like Russell Wilson, even though he might not play this entire game. If they get up big, they have a chance to lock up the first overall seed, I believe, still. And I mean, we might only need a half from Russell Wilson against San Francisco to kind of hit value at 6,800 in cash games. I'm not sure how much I like him in tournaments, just because we're not sure how long he's going to play in that game. But I really like Russell Wilson for cash.
I love Russell Wilson too. Jake, what's your take on Russell Wilson?
I'm a fan for cash, especially. I love his price actually on FanDuel. I know we're talking DraftKings, but his FanDuel price is so much cheaper than the rest of the high-end quarterbacks that I think that's a great spot to attack him. But DraftKings, he's a little bit closer, so it kind of depends on how I'm constructing my lineup. But obviously, if I put Wilson in there, I'm going to attach Baldwin to him, and I might even attach Graham in a couple places because the Tyler Lockett targets are going to go mostly to Graham. I don't think this Paul Richardson talk is anything worth looking into. The guy has 13 receptions heading to this game. So I'm looking at this. I do like him. I feel really good about him in cash. And so I don't mind the Carson Palmer. He's actually somebody that I put in my column this week, as a matter of fact, over there. So if you like that, I agree with you on that. But that's very contrarian. That's very understandable. Like, this is 1 out of 20 lineups, and understand that, again, when you go that low, it's just what we talked about before. Is when you go that low, you have to bank on all these other guys not hitting 30 points. And the odds are the names we're talking about, one of them is going to get there.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's the thing is I agree with. Now, there's a lot of people saying that you don't need to pay down, that you can save money at running back this week and things like that. But that's the thing is, like, it will create a different roster construction just based on that. And so it's not only the whole narrative with David Johnson, the fact that he wanted to get to 1,000 receiving yards, and he needs like 150 yards to get there. So it's not going to be it's not going to be very easy for him to do that. But at the same time, people are forgetting that this could be Larry Fitzgerald's last game too. Bruce Arians might be coaching for his job. So there's a whole lot of narratives behind this. And I don't know. I just think that Carson Palmer could be a solid play. I wanted to throw that out there. I think Russell Wilson is probably my favorite play of the week, though. With Jimmy Ward out, that secondary is just god-awful. It reminds me of kind of the Rams last week without – the Rams last week with not the Rams. Oh, God. Seattle last week. The Cardinals. They played the Cardinals last week. Tyvon Branch, Tyrann Mathieu were both out. So basically they're running a backup cornerback out of the slot. They tried mixing Peterson in a little bit, but it really didn't work. And you saw Baldwin kind of go off. This week, no Jimmy Ward for an already bad defense. Jimmy Graham tormented them last time, and that was with Navarro Bowman still there. So I think everything lines up for Russell Wilson. And if I'm Pete Carroll, comfortable like how they've played up to this point. There's no consistency. You need to have some sort of groove on offense. And Jake, I talked about that yesterday on the Roto Grinders show, that Jimmy Graham, I love him. I think a lot of people are down on him because of his recent production, and it coincided with Tyler Lockett's increased production, increased target share. So I think that I honestly would do a lineup where I'd stack Russell Wilson, Jimmy Graham, and Doug Baldwin. I actually like that idea. Anybody else you guys want to add a quarterback?
No, not a quarterback.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
All right, we got a lot of running backs to touch on. Let's start there with you, Jake. Who are some of your favorite running back plays? And I know there's a lot of people saving money this week, but are you going to be contrarian and pay up, or are you with them and you're going to look to save some money there?
No, I'm actually okay with paying up for one of them. I'm not going to pay up for Devontae Freeman. David Johnson, if I can, is the obvious name. We don't need to talk about David Johnson. We know what you get with him. If you can pay up and get him in your lineup, do it. But I think the other one that a lot of people might not do is Devontae Freeman. And I think part of it is the inconsistency of week to week of him, Tevin Coleman, back and forth. And last week being one of those weeks where Tevin Coleman being on people's benches, especially if you handcuffed them in seasonal leagues, or you played Devontae Freeman, you were disappointed. But if you look at this game, and I don't expect them to finish number 1 and number 2 again against the Saints, but at the same time, if we're thinking this is going to be one of the highest scoring games, Atlanta's out there fighting for the number 2 seed, Saints are out there to play spoiler. Both these offenses are high octane. Both their defenses have deficiencies at certain places, and actually overall, I think Devontae Freeman's a nice play at 7,000. So if I am paying up, I am going after him. I think he's better than, as much as I love Jordan Howard, for the fact that Jordan Howard's $200 less, it just makes me, why not just go to Devontae Freeman? So that's what I'm looking at there. To go deeper, like that's about it. If I'm going to go David Johnson or Devontae Freeman, and then I'm going to go deeper. So I'll save the cheaper options. So those are the only ones I'm paying up for.
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as Jake this week. Those are the only 2 guys I have up top. Renee Miller actually mentioned something pretty interesting on the Fantasy Labs pod about Freeman, and he's been kind of the running back that stood out at home this year, as weird as that is, and Coleman has stood out on the road. So if you play by that narrative, this would be a Freeman game. So like Freeman a lot just for the touchdown equity in general. Obviously, David Johnson, if you can fit him in. But another guy kind of in that high range, I feel like I bring him up every week, but he just always seems to finish really high up in my model, and that's DeMarco Murray. You can probably get him under 5%, and you're still trying to avoid those tail matchups. At least I do usually the best matchups and the worst matchups at running back. And then, I mean, he's going to catch passes. This is a tight spread. He is an underdog, but his salary's dropped over $500 in the past month. And trying to target guys that struggle a little bit but are still seeing volume is something I like to do in tournaments. So DeMarco Murray, I think, is a nice kind of a low-owned play at the higher end. But there's just so many options down low right now of guys that I'm kind of having difficulty sifting through all of it, especially on DraftKings. So I'm curious what you think about some of those guys right now.
What's your guys' take on the whole Thomas Rawls, Alex Collins thing? Because I know that's where a lot of people want to go. I don't know if I feel comfortable with either of them, to be honest with you. Now, Thomas Rawls, he's had some good matchups the last few weeks, and he has no room to operate, like none. And I would think that Alex Collins doesn't force a defense to stay honest as much as Thomas Rawls necessarily does. So I'm torn between those two. Like, I don't know which way. I honestly would probably try to avoid it, but I understand why people want to attack it. How do you guys feel about the situation there against San Francisco? Because it's a good one.
Nope, not doing it. It's because the offensive line doesn't do him any favors. As you mentioned, Thomas Rawls has had his opportunities. He hasn't looked very good for most of the season since he's been back. He has some flashes here and there, but nothing like we saw last year, whether that's completely himself not being 100% of what he was or the offensive line. And I would have felt better about this with Alex Collins in a cash game, not a tournament, before Rawls was coming back, because everybody was going to be on Alex Collins for this matchup. Now I want nothing to do with it. And to what you were saying about DeMarco Murray, it's a similar situation. Is I like DeMarco Murray a small bit in tournaments to what you were saying, Joe, because I am worried about the usage. I'm worried about whether or not they're up. I don't really care. I think they might just use a lot of Derrick Henry just to not get DeMarco Murray hurt. I can't. Those little games where I'm very hesitant of having too much of a higher ownership, just my own personal percentage of ownership on any of those type of situations.
I get the Henry thing. Like, that's pretty much what everyone thinks about DeMarco Murray, and I think that's why his ownership is so low pretty much every week. But I mean, DeMarco Murray's done a lot on games where he's gotten just 18 touches. So, I mean, he could get in the end zone twice on 18 touches and you just smash value at 2%. So I'm not saying he's anywhere near my cash lineups, and he's probably not even going to be like a high exposure guy. But like you said, like, I'm definitely going to have some exposure to DeMarco Murray for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's a decent tournament play. I think he's gone kind of forgotten because Henry's stealing the goal line touches, some tougher matchups. I mean, last week against Jacksonville, I know people expected a big game because of what he did last time, but Jacksonville's gotten so much better as the year's gone on. Their defense in particular is what I'm talking about. But going down, I think one of my favorite plays, in that I kind of caught some crap for it, and I'm really curious to see if you guys are open to Paul Perkins, how you feel about him. Jake, you're obviously a New Yorker or New York fan, the Giants fan. So my take here is, are they going to put old bones Rashad Jennings out there, who has been really struggling, or give him some time off? I think that that's what they should do. We have Shane Vereen, who's on IR. Do we really see anybody else getting touches? I think that they need to get him reps before the playoffs, because it's just like, it's almost like a playoff type atmosphere, because, Washington's trying to play to get into the playoffs, where they're not a really good defense, especially against the run. So I don't think that they're going to be leaning heavily on Josh Johnson. How do we feel about this, Jake?
No, the problem is the fact that as soon as Nazib comes in at quarterback, I don't expect this offense to do anything. That's my problem. And Paul Perkins is the lead running back in New York at this point, and he is the more explosive option. It's just problem is he ever going to get to 20 touches in this game? I don't see it happening. And that's the problem. Is the offense is just not going to be consistent enough to be able to succeed with Nazib at quarterback. And for all the talk about Eli Manning, the starters playing, that's great, but what is it really going to be? There's a very good chance we get to this game and they wake up to their senses, similar to the Cowboys are doing at this point, and say, you know what, if we lose Eli Manning in the third quarter, like Derek Carr just went down and Mariota just went down, guess what? We're done. We have no hope, no whatsoever. Nazib is terrible. He's worse than some backups on half the teams, probably. Actually, I'd say, yeah, at least half the teams that are backups than Nazib is. He's just terrible, and that's what the fact is. If Odell Beckham gets hurt, this team is done. They can't afford to lose either one of them. So it's not so much that I don't like Paul Perkins. It's just I don't like him knowing that Nazib's coming in at quarterback at some point.
Is Nassib going to play? I thought it was Johnson that was going to play, but yeah, you're probably right. It's probably is Nassib.
One. Does it really matter? They're both terrible.
I guess not. You're right about that. That's an interesting point about the Beckham thing. We're going to talk about him. All right. So Joe, how do you feel about Jacquizz Rodgers? Because it seems like he's like the chalk.
Yeah, I like Jacquizz quite a bit. I mean, he had 17 touches last week, and that was without Sims and Martin inactive. So I mean, they're 5-point home favorites. You don't have to talk me into him in cash games at just 4,900. I think he's a really good play. Probably even in GPP is just kind of one of those guys I'm not really worried about ownership, just because I think his volume is going to be there for that price. Perkins in general, he's at 3,400, right? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, he's cheap.
I think in that range, I'd rather go to someone else that probably people might not go to, but Sean Drone at 3,200. I mean, he could easily have double-digit reception upside in this game. I mean, there's no Carlos Hyde, there's no Torrey Smith, there's no Quentin Patton, there's no Vance McDonald. They have like no one else to give the ball to right now. And I mean, if he gets 10 to 15 carries on top of double-digit targets, receptions, like at 3,200, I think he could hit value for sure. I don't know how high his ceiling is, but I don't mind him in cash.
That's a great play. I like it a lot. I hadn't even given any thought to Jerome, to be honest with you, because I kind of looked over San Francisco. I'm like, yeah, I don't want anybody from that offense, but you make a really, really good point. Unfortunately, I mean, the only thing that sucks is Kaepernick hasn't really checked down as much as we would like him to.
That was my biggest concern.
Because he doesn't know how.
Yeah, but that's true. He doesn't know how to throw a touch pass, like to save his life. Jake, is there anybody down low that you're looking at running back?
Well, I do have down low options to skip past one, though. This is kind of the mid-level. I like Mark Ingram at 5,600.
Oh, yeah.
The team already came out and said, hey, we know you're 60 yards away from 1,000. So like they're announcing that to the world, similar to the Steve Smith situation, the Antonio Gates situation is, the teams want these guys to get it in these certain ones. Like the Bears, they don't care about Alshon Jeffrey. He's gone. But, the Mark Ingram, that type of stuff. So they're probably going to get his. I like Mark Ingram for this play. Most weeks it's tough trusting him, but I do like him there. When I'm going deeper, I think those are some interesting options. There's two for me. There's one at 4,400 and one at 4,000. 4,400, I like Rob Kelly against the Giants because it's not that the Giants are only pulling their offensive starters. They're pulling their defensive starters too. Damon Harrison, Snacks Harrison last week already got a little bit banged up. I don't know that he plays his entire game. And if he's out, that's a huge loss to the run defense. You're looking at the Redskins, as much as they can be pass happy, they should win this game if the Giants are checking out of it. Not the checking out of it like they don't care. It's just that they're pulling people out, and they're going to keep pulling people out. And it's going to include the fact that Jenkins isn't playing. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie leaves the game, which is why I kind of like the receivers as well. But Rob Kelly's always a threat for multiple touchdowns. He's not exciting because he's not being used in the passing game. But if you look at it, the 2-touchdown game, a 3-touchdown game, it could happen. So at $4,400, I'm willing to roll the dice. And at 4,000, I feel like we're always waiting for it to happen. This might be the week, but Dion Lewis at $4,000. It's just, the Garrett Blount could be off to the sidelines. Tom Brady could be checking down a little bit with the receivers out of the game. Martellus Bennett supposedly is going to be on a snap count. And then, after Tom Brady's out of the game, Dion Lewis probably still getting run as he gets ready for the playoffs. This could be one of those Dion Lewis games.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. There's a lot of people talking about that, and I don't really know any other way that they would go. I don't think that they would necessarily have Blount out there, even though he's been running like crap recently. Mark Ingram, I wrote him up this week. He's probably my favorite plays of the week. 5,600. I would guess that we'll probably throw him in our tournament lineup. I like him a lot. I almost
put him as my lock of the week, but just knowing for the fact he could get 3 carries for a fumble and never see the field again, I'm not doing that to myself.
Yeah.
Hold on. So we can't stay here at running back and not talk about the Steelers situation.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want.
Do you guys think it's well, or you play both of them?
No. You can do
They're
it.
both cheap. They're both. Wait. Did they wait? Hold on. How much did
5,500. I don't know how.
Here's the thing.
They raised.
If this offense with Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and all the pieces out there, and Landry Jones can't be a competent quarterback with those guys, what is he going to be doing with the backups?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. I think that there's a lot of people curious about it because they want to play them because it's the Browns. It's the Browns.
Fire up the Browns defense.
That's actually not a bad thing. It's really not. Joe Hayden's going to play, right?
I think so.
I know he's not great anymore. I know he's not great anymore, and he's waiting until the offseason to have a surgery, I think it was. I know he's not great anymore, but he's competent. But you know what? That's a good transition. Unless, is there somebody that anybody else that you guys want to talk to about running back?
That pretty much covers it, yeah.
Eli Rogers. I like him a lot this week.
Landry Jones.
I know that, but Eli Rogers is going to be the featured wide receiver here. He has to play a lot of the snaps. And now, does it mean that it's Ben Roethlisberger type production? No, but he's going to get more targets than he gets Ben Roethlisberger.
How many are those?
We've seen Landry Jones.
Radius?
Well, he's a slot receiver, so it's not I understand. I understand the Landry Jones thing. I get it, but there has to be some production from this game, though, right, Joe?
I mean, it's going to be sloppy. In this game, there's one guy that I'm kind of looking at for tournaments that I really like, and that's Terrell Pryor. I think I do like Rodgers quite a bit too. I'm with you there. But I mean, if we're looking for a tournament play in this game, which is probably the only place we're really looking, I think Pryor could go in that kind of 2 to 3% range in most tournaments. And I mean, I just think that the Steelers defense has nothing to play for, and it's going to be sloppy as it is. So, I mean, this is the lowest that Pryor's price has been since week 3. So he's one of those guys that struggled lately, but he's still getting volume that I think you can take advantage of in tournaments. And I mean, he's an underdog, but he's not a heavy underdog. And that's usually a situation I like to attack a wide receiver. And he's just 4,200. So that's what I'm looking at.
If Kessler was starting, I would like him more. I can't. RG3, I don't even know why they're trotting him out here. I don't know why you don't put Cody Kessler.
Still banged up too?
Yeah, I would have to check on
Pryor
that.
he's got a hand injury, I think it was. Isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. But I think the only thing I'm concerned about with him is RG3. I ever since RG3 took over, he's been non-existent, essentially.
And that's why it's because the Browns seemingly want to lose by starting RG3. So I don't know what to expect here.
Yeah, they won last week, and then San Francisco gave them the number 1 pick right back. That was idiotic. I mean, I know that you have to play to win as an NFL team, but I don't know how you don't tell your players, say, hey, look, we got to play for the future here. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the players in general. Yeah, the players in general, though, like you talk about guys that have something to play for. Like Pryor is someone that still wants to put good games on tape. So I think that's something that matters in a week that might not matter for a lot of teams. You're still got to try and find those players that are going to be playing hard.
Yeah. No, I know that there's a lot of guys out there still playing for contracts and things like that. Guys like Steve Smith, who I think we're all in agreement here that Steve Smith is a great play this week. Regardless of the narrative and all that stuff, it's a decent matchup for him. Another player that I like a lot this week that nobody else really wants to talk about is Julio Jones. I liked him before Gabriel was announced out. Julio played 39 of 63 snaps last week, so he clearly wasn't 100%, but he's practicing more and more. Kyle Shanahan keeps saying that he's getting better. I do think that they need to establish that relationship again before the playoffs start. They're going to have a first-round bye, it seems. So they're going to be able to push Julio a little bit more because he's about to get a week off. They pull off a win here. The Saints are without, obviously, Delvin Breaux went to IR. And on top of that, Ken Crawley, the guy who helped contain Julio in their first meeting, out for this game as well. So, I mean, their secondary is really banged up. As you mentioned, the highest over-under of the week. Do you guys have anything against Julio this week? Is it just what everybody else kind of says with the health? You just don't know how healthy he is.
It's the toe, man. The only thing that heals that toe is rest, and he's not getting it. So that's why I know he's supposedly getting better, but at the same time, turf toe is a real deal. We had a doctor on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network, and he was talking about it and saying the fact that it started off as a grade 1, and by him practicing that very first week when he injured it, it became a grade 2 sprain, and it's not going to get any better. It's not ever going to get 100% until the offseason. So that's my only concern, is if he's out there for even more snaps this week. Is he out there 40 snaps, 45, 50? Is he coming out at the goal line because his toe is just bothering him so much? Is he in, out, in, out, in, out? So I'm with you. I definitely think that's why he's an interesting tournament play, especially if you're going to pair him with Matt Ryan, but I won't have a high exposure to him.
Yeah, I think he's...
Joe, what's your take?
I think he's interesting. I mean, even if he does play like 62% of the snaps like he did last week, I think that's more than enough time for him to do damage against the Saints. And like you said, this over under 54 plus points, like historically Julio is just smashed in games with plus 54 over under. So, I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, and then the fact that you're probably going to get him under 10%, which is probably lower than he should be because of the toe, there's obviously some uncertainty, but I'm not really worried about him getting pulled to the goal line. You're not really looking for red zones type stuff from Julio as it is. You're looking for those long scores and the yardage. So, I mean, I'm fine with Julio. I'm not going to roll out kind of this week without any of them, but I'm definitely going to kind of be cautious, probably right on par with the field.
Gotcha. Who are some of your favorite wide receiver plays, Jake?
Well, I already talked about Devontae Adams. I'm going right back to Adam Thielen again, especially Stephon Diggs might even be out this week, so we don't know. Have they updated that yet? I know he was fringy.
I'll look at that. Let me see.
But
He did not practice Friday. He's doubtful, so he's not playing.
yeah, even with them out, because I know some people are like, "Oh, there's going to be too much defensive attention for Adam Thielen," but I'm okay with it because Kyle Rudolph has kind of softened up defenses enough to keep defenders honest on Thielen, and this is a matchup where both of them can take advantage of it anyway. And even when Diggs was limited missing time before, Thielen was still doing good. And I think a lot of people are going to see last week, and you're going to have I think it's going to be fine. You're going to get the recency bias, but you're also going to get the people who are saying, "Oh, I'm not going to jump in," because everybody is jumping in after what happened last week. So I think it all evens out in the end. I've been on him for weeks. I'm going to keep going back to him in places. I love Michael Thomas. He's got the better matchup of the two between Brandin Cooks. Actually, there's nobody on the Rams. Tremaine Johnson's on the outside. Even if he was on Michael Thomas, there's really nobody on the Rams that could defend Michael Thomas. But without Tremaine Johnson really going to be on him that much, I think you're looking at a great game for him. Obviously, Steve Smith, as we mentioned before, for cash. And then I got to tell you, outside of that, I like Doug Baldwin. Talked about it. I love Golden Tate, but their prices are just – I find myself diffing down to the Devontae Adams and Thielens of the world instead of paying for it, because they're in that second, third tier range where it's it's not the paying up to get a Julio Jones, but it's paying a little bit too much to drop down. So I'm not having a lot of them.
Gotcha. And yeah, I think now real quick, Joe, before I get to your wide receivers, sure. Odell Beckham, don't play him, right? Like so I explained this yesterday, and I wonder if you guys. I say this all the time. I'm like, do the Giants think like I'm thinking right now, where if you're the Giants head coach, if you're the Giants GM, whoever it is, Odell Beckham, we know what happened on the field last year, right? Against Josh Norman. It was a mess. He got suspended for a game. And then, we get back to the first meeting this year and they're right back at it. Like the two just clearly don't like each other. And Odell Beckham, there was supposedly a team imposed suspension looming, which I never really bought. But here's the thing. If you're the Giants, you know that Josh Norman's going to be out there trying to get into his head. We know that. Like you're not escaping that. And Odell Beckham has proven that he can't contain his temper. So why do you put Odell Beckham out there at all? Like even if you're in a season long this week, like season long
because
league,
he ripped them apart last week or last matchup.
I know that, but that's what I'm saying. He did that, but at the same time, he still gets under his skin. And what happens? Worst case scenario. This game means nothing for the Giants. Worst case scenario, Odell Beckham gets suspended.
No, I think worst case scenario is he gets hurt. I understand what you're saying. I think worst case scenario is he gets hurt, and that's why they're not going to play him. I don't think it's the Josh Norman factor. I think that he came out of last game not bothered at all by him, torched him on the field, and made jokes afterwards. And I think there's still the rivalry there, and there still is. I know that Odell Beckham came out and said that he doesn't even think about it anymore, and we're all good. I don't believe that. I'm with you there. But I don't think it's to the level of them worried about him getting suspended. So I'm staying away from him just because I don't think he plays outside the second quarter very much, if at all.
Yeah, I'm probably not playing Beckham. Wasn't really someone I was considering just because he plays 2 series. Yeah, he might be a guy that goes crazy on those.
On the other side of the ball, though, I do like Deshaun Jackson. I forgot to mention him, of course, because Deshaun Jackson just always does well against the Giants for some reason. And if you have no Jenkins to start, and now you're probably pulling Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie at some point. Heck, they're probably going to be pulling Landon Collins at some point as well. That secondary is not going to have much left to stop Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, or Jamison Crowder, who, thank you very much, has shown up nothing for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson actually goes really well with my 2 wide receivers because like my favorite trend that I use at Fantasy Labs for tournaments is players that have a high recent market share of yards, but a low long-term market share of yards. So basically you're getting these guys that are getting a high market share of yards, but you're getting them at a lower ownership and probably a lower price. So 2 guys besides Deshaun Jackson that fall under that trend this week were Golden Tate, like we touched on. I do like him a little bit more on FanDuel because of the price, but I think you can still get him at an ownership probably 5 to 8% or so, just because he is a little bit more expensive and he's going to see those targets. Ebron is probably going to take a little bit of the red zone stuff from him, but I mean, Bolden's I think a little bit banged up, so I think Golden Tate's interesting against Green Bay. The other guy that kind of fell under that trend was Brandin Cooks. I know a lot of people really like Thomas this week, and for this offense, it's not necessarily finding the best play, I think, sometimes, because a lot of times they're all in pretty good spots. It's trying to find the guy that's going to be lower owned and it's going to help you the most in tournaments. So like the weeks where Brandin Cooks is in the 25% range, he's a pretty easy fade. But anytime you can get him somewhat close to the 10 to 15, I'm a lot more interested. And he's a guy that I think that even on the road, he's going to be someone that can win you a week. And I really like Cooks with Breeze in tournaments.
I understand it because he's like basically on the track again because he's indoors, and that's basically what you want to look for with Brandin Cooks. But I mean, obviously he's not in play for cash because he's just a very volatile guy. But I don't know, Jake. I think Jake and I are on the same page here. I think that I'm more Michael Thomas this week than Brandin Cooks. How about you?
Yeah, that's what you're asking me. Yeah, well, I threw him out before. I think it's the fact that no Tremaine Johnson on him. Tremaine Johnson's going to be on Brandin Cooks most of the game, so that's actually why I'm going that way in general to begin with.
There are very few
matchups
like that, though, that I really like. I'm scared off of, like Patrick Peterson, guys like that. But I still don't think there's anyone on the Rams that's going to be able to.
Don't get me wrong. You're right. I'm not saying he can shut down Brandin Cooks. Tremaine Johnson's definitely not.
But no, I get it. It is a better matchup for Thomas. I agree with you.
Yeah, Thomas has by far the best matchup of anybody. That's really what I was going with.
For sure.
Yeah. Is there anybody else, like any cheap wide receivers that you guys like? Like say, someone's looking for somebody down like 4,500 or below. How about down there, Joe?
Yeah. Do you guys like LaFell at all at 4,500 against Baltimore? I mean, he's averaged 14 DraftKings points per game since AJ Green went down. So if he hits that, he's going to 3x his salary pretty quickly. But it's not something I'm super excited about. But I mean, the Ravens are going to be without Jimmy Smith, so it's something I'm looking at in that range.
I have no issue with LaFell. He's proved me wrong, I guess, since AJ Green's gone out. He's had a couple of those big games. And as you mentioned, Baltimore, all they do is allow touchdowns to wide receivers, especially when Jimmy Smith is out. They've actually struggled against tight ends too. When Jimmy Smith is out, it kind of funnels into the tight end position too. Unfortunately, we don't have Eifert. Uzoma could be an interesting one. Like I've hit the last 2 weeks on these crazy off the wall tight ends that I've been saying. So Uzoma might be that guy this week. But
if you the only two I was looking at further down is Bryce Butler, obviously, but he's not going to be playing with Dak Prescott, so that's kind of something you have to take into
Tony
account.
Romo, man. Tony Romo.
He's going to probably be out there for like 2 series. But I think the other one, Malcolm Mitchell, probably out. Michael Floyd.
Chris Hogan. Oh, I thought you said Chris Hogan.
No, I'm saying
no Chris Hogan?
I'm saying Michael Floyd. 3,500 for Michael Floyd.
I like Dion Lewis a lot better than Michael Floyd.
No, yeah, of course. But you asked about cheap wide receivers. He's $3,500.
But he's in the same price range if we're talking flex, and if we're gonna throw a dart at another Patriot, that's not Julian Edelman. It's probably going to be him for me. But I understand what you're saying for a tournament. He could do something. Yeah.
I mean, he's $3,500. So 3 times value is almost a lock if he can do anything.
Yeah.
I mentioned Eli Rogers. What about Mohamed Sanu?
Snoo.
He's 46.
How healthy is he? That's my problem. He seems to be, even when he gets back on the field, he gets hurt again.
Yeah, I think I'm more comfortable. Sorry, go ahead.
No, he's just been so up and down this year. Like it felt like a part of us was just like, okay, now that he has a better quarterback and Matt Ryan, he's showing that he's a pretty decent receiver. And then it's like you're back to being Mohamed Sanu again.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the only week I played him was when Montgomery was ruled out late, and then people were pivoting to Devontae Adams, and I think Sanu was like the same price, so I pivoted to about half and half, and I think that's the only time I've played him all year.
And it probably bit you right in the butt, didn't it?
Actually, it was all right, but it wasn't anything crazy. Devontae Adams was the pivot, clearly.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about a couple tight ends. I'll just throw out my favorites of the week. I think Zach Ertz is probably him and Jimmy Graham are 2 of my favorites. I know everybody's saying that Travis Kelce is like the only tight end on the slate, but you have to diversify your lineups, obviously. And I think Zach Ertz, it's a Philadelphia team that's missing their 3 of their top 4 running backs. They only have Darren Sproles and what is it? Paul? God, I can't remember the running back's name right now. Byron Marshall, yes. I don't know why I was thinking Paul. But those 2 are going to be the running backs. That's obviously not going to do anything for you. You have Jordan Matthews, who's a little bit hobbled. You have Dorial Green-Beckham, who's kind of just a guy. And then Nelson Aguilar, who's bad. And we have a Dallas Cowboys defense that's going to be resting a lot of their starters. They weren't good against tight ends to begin with. I think this could be like legitimately a 10-catch game for Zach Ertz.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys on my list. I don't feel completely secure, but I think you never really feel secure with Ertz. So no, I don't mind it in tournaments for sure.
Yeah, any tight end. I don't know if do we really feel secure about any tight end? I mean, I know Kelce, we can say that this week, but just last week we were talking about, oh no, is Andy Reid happening again? Because he had 3 catches for 41 yards.
Yeah. And
So I mean,
and then he has
I like
career
Kelsey.
high in catches last week.
Like Cam,
Yeah.
Greg Olsen, and Jonathan Stewart all didn't practice. So, and Greg Olsen was coming out of the game last week, so I'm not messing around with him, although you would want to. Jordan Reed is intriguing against the Giants.
dumb.
Very intriguing against the Giants. But how healthy is he? Is he going to be out there for 20 snaps, 30, 40?
Right.
Who knows? That could definitely be a nice boomer bust for you because I don't expect this owner, anybody to be on him for that very reason. So, but it really is. I think the majority of the ones that I've been looking at plugging into my lineups are Kelsey, Ertz, maybe Rudolph, but mostly Kelsey, Ertz, and then, of course, Antonio Gates for, look, they're going to try and give him 15 targets to get him the touchdown if it takes it.
Yeah.
Well, Gates came out this week and said that this is not the way he envisioned ending his career, and that he's leaning towards coming back next year. And
he's leaning because he's fat and falling over.
No, I said he'll be leaning towards retirement if he catches 2 touchdowns, but he's not going to do that against the. I'm not on Gates this week, and I know, Joe, I've been giving you crap every week saying you have to play him, but I am not about the Antonio Gates life this week.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to play him either. What do you guys think Graham's ownership's going to be like? Because I honestly thought he'd be kind of like a nice leverage play off of Baldwin. You guys think he's going to be popular?
I think he'll be the second highest owned tight end.
Second highest owned. You think he'll be that high?
I think he'll be right behind Kelsey. I do. I think the word's getting out there about with Lockett and kind of doing the adding up. Like, I thought it was a sharp play, but like the more I talk to people, the more people seem to like Jimmy Graham this week. Because it does really correlate with Tyler Lockett. Like that. That's why I wrote up Jimmy Graham as one of my locks this week, is because people don't understand that and it was the same thing kind of last year when Tyler Lockett started to become a thing. Jimmy Graham slowly trended down. Like it's just almost like he can't have 3 options in the offense produce at a high level. So now that you have Baldwin and you have Graham, Paul Richardson, as you mentioned earlier, I'm not really on him. So I happen to think this is a great week for Graham. Now, who would be the second highest owned tight end outside of him? Would it be Kyle Rudolph? Would it be Ertz?
I think it's Gates. Everybody's going to be on it because of the fact that even if so he's going to not play. Look, I don't think he's coming back to the Chargers next year. I don't think he's coming back, whatever. But I think a lot of people are going to be on Gates anyway.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people this week. I've been a big supporter, but I'm not on him this week. Is there any other tight ends you guys want to talk about before we get in this lineup?
Good.
No, I think we're pretty top heavy on tight ends this week. All right, so you guys want to start with cash or you want to start with tournament lineup?
We're gonna do a cash lineup.
Yeah, we're gonna do one because I'm not doing the Sunday show. Joe was sleeping throughout the first 5 minutes. It's been a long season, guys. We're finally at the end though, and this is our last lineup, so let's make it a good one. We've actually done really, really good on our tournament lineups. My cash lineups this year finished 13 of 17 is how I ended up with cash lineups that I gave out on Sunday morning. So last year was 14 out of 17, so we're doing really good there. Let's start with cash, because then we get out our safe plays and just feel better about it, see how the lineup construction goes. All right, so who do you guys want to play? Are we? I'll actually start it because then I'll have you guys start the tournament lineup. Let's go with Jaquiz Rodgers. I think we have to play him at 4,900 in cash. So Jake.
Hold on, I'm going to Quiz. Quiz. There we go. All right, then. You know what? I will do might as well. I'm going to play him in cash and tournament. My lock of the week, Devontae Adams.
All right. Where did he go? All right, there he is, 5,700. All right, we're doing well salary wise.
Yeah, let's just get Matt Ryan. I don't know if we have to pair him with anyone, but let's just grab those raw points since we got some money to spend.
Yeah, you really don't have to pair him with anyone if you don't want to. I want to make the lineup the cash one with David Johnson. So can we do that, or do you think that we should pay down David Johnson? All right, DJ. And Jake, I like your call too. If once we get back to me, I might try and save us some money and go with the Browns defense. So just so you guys know, so if you don't have to save too much money. I don't think 2,100. I mean, that's like ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is very intriguing. I put him into a tournament lineup. I'm just going to let you know that right now. I did do it.
I mean, depends on where you guys go. We may not have to do that, but
I am actually going to, for the next one that we haven't talked about, 4 straight double-digit weeks. I think that this is one to attack all their wide receivers, at least their top 2, who now is not Crowder anymore. I'd say we plug in Pierre Garçon.
Garcon?
For 5,000.
I'm fine. Yeah. Let's see.
So we need probably someone a little cheaper now, huh?
Well, I was trying with the 5,000.
No, I know. I just
well, here,
David Johnson does that.
Might as well plug in the defense. Might as well plug in the Browns.
Okay.
That gets us up to 5,000 average for the last 3 spots.
Yeah, you think we have room for Kelsey or?
Well, why not? If we're doing cash, and I know technically his name should not be synonymous with cash, but we already talked about the situation. Why not Eric Ebron?
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So you guys pick out the last 2 because I basically kind of did 2 picks in a row there. Now you're at 57.50 for the last 2 picks.
We might. Let me see. All right. So let me think here. So who are you thinking, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to see if we had enough room for Golden Tate, but I don't know if we do. We can just go Steve Smith.
Actually, well, he's 60
cash. Why are we not doing
let's play Steve Smith at 4,900, and then we got 6,600 for our flex, which is enough to get us Golden Tate.
Just made the decision for you there.
It's true. We almost have enough for Michael Thomas, which is what I was hoping for.
Let me ask you something though, real quick though, for you, Joe. Golden Tate or DeMarco Murray and change the defense out?
Yeah, or Julian Edelman too. That's the only thing is like it's a cash lineup and we have Tate and Ebron, which I don't necessarily like.
Yeah, that's the.
I'm not really scared off of Julian Edelman. What do you guys think about him? Just, I mean, he only played half the snaps last week. He still had 8 to 10 targets or something like that.
I think this is a week where Tate, I think he sees 11 or 12 targets, and I think he catches 8 balls. I like the Golden Tate pick. I'm trying to figure out where
we could get Charles Clay against the Jets defense. But
he's got EJ Manuel. I'm not about that EJ Manuel life.
No, I think I might rather go with Ryan Nassib.
I would rather shoot myself than talk about EJ Manuel. Why?
There are a few other options at tight end, but now we're getting to I don't think any of them are cash.
You can go down to
because Kobe Fleener scored last time against Atlanta, but that was actually his best game of the season.
And that was at home too. He's been better at home, which is just damn it.
Get the Dennis Pitta.
I thought we might be able to. Well, we could go Jimmy Graham at tight end and go Ingram in the flex if we wanted to keep Steve Smith.
Oh wait, yeah, we can go down to now I'm torn on this whole thing because I do like Mark Ingram a lot.
Done. Just do it. Jimmy Graham.
I think I like that.
Jimmy Graham, Mark Ingram. Do it. Do it, Mike.
There you go. So Matt Ryan, Jaquiz Rodgers, David Johnson. Our wide receivers we got lower wide receivers here. All right, so we have Devontae Adams, Pierre Garçon, Steve Smith. Tight end Jimmy Graham, and the Browns defense.
Yeah, Browns D and cash.
we are lunatics. That's basically where I stand with that lineup.
To be honest, this proves how hard it is to put a decent cash lineup with David Johnson in. They've made it hard.
Oh well, DraftKings that's the thing is I've looked at FanDuel stuff because it's so much more fun. And I think I appreciate the challenge on DraftKings. I sit there and I go through lineups, and most people can we're creating one right now.
My bank account going up. You can challenge all you want.
DraftKings mine does, but FanDuel I was almost break even. It seemed like I just wasn't getting anywhere with FanDuel.
I told you guys when we did the last week when we were talking about the full season, my DraftKings has been going like this, very, 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 very slowly. FanDuel has 60% improvement this year, so FanDuel all the way. Yay!
Kickers, baby.
No, stop it, Joe.
All right, so a tournament lineup. All right, so now we're looking for a lot higher ceiling. So for the last lineup of the season, what's that?
Nothing. I made a joke about my last name.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We wouldn't be playing Pierre Garçon in a tournament.
No.
All right. So Jake, go ahead, kick it off. I'll be the last pick.
Can I go with Devontae Adams again?
Sure.
I really want Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Oh, you can do it. 5,700. I mean, it's nice because it allows us to spend up in other places too.
Right. Team guy. That's what I'm talking about.
I've already put in Drew Brees for this lineup, so I don't know if you guys are with that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. We could do that, and we could pair him with Michael Thomas.
I think he was going to go Brandin Cooks, but I'm
Do
good
both.
with Thomas.
I know he was.
No, we can go Thomas.
We could do both.
We can go Thomas.
Naked Breeze, man.
All right, I think you got to pair Breeze with somebody. I like Thomas.
Okay.
I mean, do you? Remember, it was pair him, and then Brandon Cooks got a big that 1 week. So, I mean, Naked Breeze isn't the worst thing in the world.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but Thomas, he's healthy again. They don't have a corner to cover that dude. He's so good.
You know, while we're doing this, real quick theory question for both of you guys. How opposed to you are doing some nice quarterback, running back, wide receiver trios this week? Like one of them could be the Saints. One of them could be, if you went with and tried to play Thomas Rawls, you could go with Seahawks. I mean, there's a couple teams this week where you could do it.
Well, yeah, you could do Breeze, Ingram, and Michael Thomas. Like that's like legit stack right there because I mean we're looking like as Joe mentioned, it's the highest over under of the year.
Yep.
And Atlanta's defense is not in tip top shape. I mean,
Here's one for you. Could I get you to go?
Always
Cousins,
fireworks.
Could I get you to go Cousins, Kelly, Deshaun Jackson?
Oh God, no.
How many lineups would you have to build to get you in on that?
No, honestly, I wouldn't. Then the reason I say that is because if the Redskins were to jump out into a lead, they are not throwing the ball. Like Cousins doesn't have the upside that you would want because the Giants aren't going to score very many points. We know that. Like especially with them resting the starters after the first couple series or whatever it is, they're not gonna be playing very much. So
you don't all in on Robert Kelly.
Rob Kelly is not a bad play, honestly. Like I'm not opposed to Rob Kelly this week. I actually think he's probably a better play than Cousins.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of times where the quarterback, running back, wide receiver stack is something that you can, I mean, it doesn't really cannibalize, I don't think, the production as much as people think. I mean, they're helping each other get first downs. They're helping each other get in scoring position. So I think there's definitely situations where it can be a
memento over here. Joe, somebody you've brought up a million times this year, you didn't bring up, no Mike Evans?
I brought him up a lot. I'm not a big Mike Evans guy, honestly.
Really? I feel like you always bring up Mike Evans.
The show you were gone, we put Mike Evans in our lineup with Rummy, and it just ruined everything.
It did. We had such a good lineup, and he ruined it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Whose pick is it?
All right. It's Jake's turn.
No, I said Adams, and then you said Breeze, and then so you said Thomas. That was your
back
pick?
to you. Yeah, back to you.
Okay. Then I am going to put in. I'm going to take the tight end, and one that we didn't take so far because Matt Castle.
I was going to take my tight end.
Were you? No, I'm taking Matt Castle
who you going with?
And Delaney Walker.
Oh God, don't do that.
Yes, targeted him 8 times.
Walker. No. I mean, he was targeted an awful lot once Castle got in, and that's when he actually got his production.
Exactly.
I wanted to put Zach. I wanted to put Zach Ertz in this lineup so bad.
I know. That's why I went tight end. I hate Zach Ertz. You really hate Zach Ertz.
I hate Zach Ertz too.
Internet high five.
I'm gonna at both of you when Zach Ertz is going off on Sunday.
Oh God.
That's fine because you're gonna also add us with the Allen Robinson, so that worked out fine.
I'm telling you. So all right. So we're not playing him in this lineup, but I'm telling you guys, play some Zach Ertz. Just do that for me.
Is the Eagles have nothing to play for too, and they're yanking people all over the place. Is he even going to play the whole entire game? I'm honestly worried about the Eagles.
I don't think they have enough bodies. I don't think they have the bodies to play. Like I think they have to. They have to field a team.
Selleck's, they probably popped another one out of the chamber. They probably have a third one over there.
Maybe Clay Harbor. Maybe I'm sleeping on Clay Harbor this week.
Trey Burton.
Oh, Trey Burton. Yeah.
So do we just basically onslaught this New Orleans Atlanta game the rest of the way in this lineup, or I'm going Devonta Freeman.
You went Freeman. I mean, hold on. I have to see money wise where we're at because I'm okay with doing Mark Ingram. I'm okay with doing Ingram.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing Ingram. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So now we have 4,500 a player. We have the wide receiver flex and defense to fill.
What do you guys think about the Colts at 3,200? I guess they're not that cheap. They're a lot cheaper on FanDuel. But I mean, against Blake Bortles, I don't know. There's going to be pass.
If we're doing a tournament, we might as well put our cash defense in because that is a tournament play.
We're not playing the Browns defense in both of our lineups.
It's a tournament. They're actually
way.
better for tournament. All right, then I will give you one serious one that I have been putting in a lot of places is, as we talked about earlier, Ryan Nassib at quarterback, plug in the Redskins.
Yeah, I like the Redskins a lot.
The Redskins, where are they at?
2900.
29. Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. All right. So, Joe, between you and I, we have 10,500 left for 2 players, wide receiver and a flex.
If you had the flex
YOLO
option, I want to ask Joe something real quick because you like the Devontae Freeman thing too. If you had a flex option in a tournament, would you go with Freeman, or would you, if you had the money, would you rather go Doug Baldwin? Like if those 2 players were up against each other.
Yeah, that's
I'd say
tough.
Baldwin.
I think Baldwin probably. I don't know. I like Freeman a lot this week. I think that their ceilings are closer than people realize. I don't know. I think Baldwin's going to be very, very highly owned. And if I'm going to go with a player that's highly owned, I would rather do it at running back typically.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that. That's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting though. I do like Baldwin.
For our final lineup, we should YOLO it and put David Johnson in and leave our last spot open. Totally kidding. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just seeing how much room we would have if I put Cooks in the lineup, but you guys would hate me.
Well, wait, we already have Ingram.
I bet my
Onslaught. Then we're looking at
Ingram
like
and Michael Thomas.
Then we're looking at Robert Turbin. Yeah, we don't want that.
You do Rob Kelly.
No, Robert Turbin.
What do you think, Mike? What are you thinking here? I'm looking at our salaries and
nobody ever asked. Well, we never brought it up, but I got a lot of questions about it. Isaiah Crowell this week at 4,400.
I actually don't think he's a horrible play against. I don't think he's a horrible play. They're going to have the ball a lot because we're talking about Landry Jones. I don't think it's the worst play in the world. I think I might want to get a piece of the Detroit Green Bay game and maybe Tate as the wide receiver. And then we have 3,900 for the flex. I don't know what we fit there though.
Ooh.
Jalen Richard.
Cameron
Artis-Payne. There could be no Jonathan Stewart.
Chris Hogan.
Hate Chris Hogan.
Hogan's fine, right? Like I'm not wrong here, am I?
I'd rather go
stupid face.
I'd rather go with Kenny Stills, honestly.
Antonio Gates.
No, God no.
Oh.
No Kenny Stills. Matt Moore throwing the deep ball.
Butler. Ebron.
Yeah, that's
your boy Michael
actually
Floyd.
Stills might not be the worst play, to be honest.
I'm being serious. It's not like I'm being 100.
No, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's like the worst call ever because you got to figure Logan Ryan sucks, but he's going to be in the slot covering Landry. Landry burned them last time. Devontae Parker had a solid game, but they didn't shadow Devontae Parker last week. So do you think Butler stays on Parker and then Stills is basically on an island?
It could be. It could be any which way. I think there's upside here. Matt Moore loves throwing the deep ball to him. Whether or not he connects, that's another story. But
Stills, when they played week 2, Stills 4 catches, 39 yards and a touchdown. Did I go too high with Golden Tate? What did I do here, Joe?
Yeah, I'm struggling. I don't think we can do that. What you guys were just talking about. I was just seeing what we could do if we went up to Cooks, but never mind.
You and Cooks. And so basically, if Ertz goes off, I'm going to at you guys. If Cooks goes off, you're going to at both of us. And Jake, who's your guy that we didn't want to play?
Browns D.
Delaney Walker.
The Browns D.
The Browns D gets that defensive touchdown, then
the Browns D, yeah. I'm going to be you will definitely hear from me if the Browns defense comes up big.
That is the best. So,
so
where are we going here, Joe?
At this point?
I think Stills is fine.
Stills?
I'm not playing this lineup.
So
that's what I said last week.
Well, you guys said that last week, and I want to say that lineup would have definitely made some money last week.
Yeah, like $2.
It was a good lineup. No, it was a good lineup.
It was okay.
We had some of the nuts. Guys, well, it's been a blast doing podcasts with you guys. Hopefully we can continue doing something like this next year. I know it's been talks for a long time between Joe and I, and I'm glad we finally put it into effect just to get it kind of rolling. I think we're going to have more production value next year in regards to our videos. I'm going to work on that this off season, and it's going to be a good time. But I just want to thank both of you guys for joining me on this what was it, a 7-8 week journey that we had? Is that what it was?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, Jake, is there anything that you want to say before we get out of here?
No, thanks for having me on as guest. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad. And then I was able to bring you guys on Fantasy Sports Radio, which was a good time. So that was good. Yeah, Joe was on this morning, by the way. Mike, both of you guys came on this week.
No, it's awesome. And Joe told me that he was going to be on. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun to kind of go on there. And
it's always,
just in general, I think that this podcast was a success, or something that we kind of threw together halfway through the season. I'm glad we didn't wait until next year, even though you didn't get to play this year, Mike. Hopefully next year you'll after the baby comes and you'll be back in Chicago, life will be good.
It will be, and I swear to God that you are going to catch a more emotional Mike next year, because I will be playing the players and I will be playing the lineup. So if these two jack around and put Delaney Walker in my lineups with Matt Castle at quarterback, I am going to lose my stuff. But no, again, we appreciate every single one of you guys that showed up for the shows this year. Let us know if there's anything that you feel like we can improve on for next year, because honestly, we're here for you guys, and if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing this stuff. So thank you guys, as always. We really do appreciate it. Again, if you guys are still playing DFS throughout the playoffs and things like that, make sure to check out rototracker.com/POR as in process over results. Even if you're not playing playoffs, analyze the stuff that you've played this year just to see how you did. Maybe you've done better than you thought. Maybe you weren't tracking it yourself, whatever the case may be. But thank you to Roto Tracker for sponsoring the show. We greatly appreciate your support. And thank you guys one last time. So until next season, guys, lights out.